order, we do have a forum. Any public comments? Anybody? If not, we will move into C, which is our consent agenda. Senior citizens report. Amelia here. Laura, Circle District. Nick is on vacation. Tina is out. She's called me last night about 10. She thinks she may be exposed, so we're gonna wait. She don't feel comfortable coming. Should know something on her test today. Auditor, Ms. Mullen.
I'm here. If you guys got a copy of the invoice policy, do y'all have any questions about the bills this month? And I don't have anything.
Law enforcement, Sheriff Arnwine.
We had a little incident at the jail, I believe it was Saturday morning, 5 o'clock. Jailer alarm went off. She smelled what smelled like smoke in the lobby. Called the fire department. They all came down there, and one of the air conditioners had some kind of malfunction, and it was wiring that was hot, is what we were smelling. Checked on it. We've got somebody coming to look at it today to see what the problem is. Other than that, I believe the judge maybe can fill us in a little better than I can, but we got a grant for radio repeaters and a base station, maybe the jail.
Yes, we did. We got $65,000, which is what we asked for, which is add a repeater and upgrade the existing repeaters. Total funds were asked for were $6,400,000 from all the 19 COGs. They gave away $1,500,000. We got 100%. Only two of us got 100%, which was us and Shopper. Anyway, there's no match. There's no anything. We don't have to certify any money because it doesn't come to us. The people that fix repeaters bill COG pays them, so it never shows up. But anyway, $65,000 we got from that. That's all I have. I have a motion on the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Have a second, all in favor? Unanimous, it passes. New business. Victor, conflict of interest on bills.
Yes, I have 2 bills for rotating motor, the small bills. They're conflict of interest.
I'll make a motion. Second.
All in favor? Motion carries. Any budget amendment line item transfer?
Not today.
Item number 4 will be the burn ban.
Leave it on.
So we'll leave it on, so we don't need anything on that. Special revenue, Becky?
Yes, we received a check from Scurry Midstream LLC for gas pipeline income, and I believe that's precinct 3, $2,500. So we just need to certify that and certify it to the court and ask them where we want that put.
Precinct 3 and the pipeline line item.
That's all I have on that.
Pat, resolution for sub-grant.
Okay, yeah. We had our security assessment, which we had to have to apply for this grant. We just need a resolution on it. We'll get $120,000. The county will have to put in $16,000. So we'll have $136,000 for this to, we can buy, which I have a quote for you later in this, to buy new equipment and then anything else we need to do for election security. And I just need approval on it so we can send it into the state.
I'll make a motion to approve it. Second.
All in favor? Okay, item number 7, purchase road grader, precinct 2, Mr. Elrod.
Well, we got figures on the back page. approve it.
Who said, I'm sorry, who said that? Kevin, okay, so.
Have a motion, second, all in favor? Unanimous. All right. Purchase of road grader, item number 8, precinct 3, Mr. Martin.
Basically the same thing, they're holding that machine, and told me to let them know something today, one way or another, so. Finance it through, First National Bank, Gordon McCain there.
What's the amount, Preston? I don't have paperwork.
It come up about 54,000 a year, 307 was the total, and put down 52,000 of FEMA money that I have in reserve as a down payment on it.
There, Jason. It's the same one.
It'll be an annual payment.
Wouldn't it be cheaper if we did monthly payments?
No, we added it up, and actually, then here's Gord, he can speak on that, I won't speak for him.
Yes, sir. We looked at, over the life of the lease purchase, since he was gonna be making his down payment of $52,000 in his first payment in the first 92 days, if he did monthly payments, the interest would actually be about $3,000 more than having the larger principal payment made in 92 days. So it would actually save the county money by doing the lump sum payments in this particular scenario.
Anybody got any questions? Who made the motion?
Dexter.
Second by Kevin. All in favor? All right, item number 10, purchase truck from FEMA grant monies. Mr. Stewart.
Yeah, there's two estimates there. It's actually, one of them's a cheaper one, but there's reasons why it's cheaper. Chevrolet, having trouble out of their 8-speed transmissions, and they went back to a 6-speed transmission, and some of them, a little fancier ones, you could get the 10-speed, and the actual difference in fuel mileage is 3 miles per gallon supposedly, which would pay for the difference in the pickup to buy the little fancier ones. Actually, the one I wanna buy is the fancier, which is the first one, $38,484,049. You got money to pay for that? Yeah, it's in the FEMA money, they're wanting to trade that Dodge in that we got, it's 07, 198,000 miles on it. And they'll give us 4,500 for it. It books from 3,100 to 4,900, I think, which I think 4,500 is a good deal. We should trade it in. I'll make the motion.
Have a motion, have a second by Dexter, all in favor? Motion carries. Item number 11, discuss bids for airport repairs. George got your name out, but I think this is the, just interlocal agreement, is that right?
Yeah,
Well, I think there's another one over there that's got the interlocal.
well, all I know is, Lisa Peterson, the county attorney in, Sweetwater, sent me that proposed, and, I had a couple of little changes, and then that, I don't know what you have in front of you, I didn't get all the paperwork, but assuming that's the one, Nolan County approved, this interlocal, so,
Yes, we've already signed off.
okay.
So we need to make an interlocal agreement with them.
Right, that's what we,
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
all in favor? Motion carries.
That, there's a price in here, what they're gonna charge, but we have to purchase the rock.
Yeah, on this interlocal agreement, Gordon has got maximum project cost exclusive, of the rock, $20,952.20. That's about what we've got
We've got, money in there.
in the airport
Yeah.
budget.
I forgot to get the price on the rock, but I'll get the price.
You have any idea, I mean, just rough?
I can't remember how many tons he told me. I wanna say he told me around 320 tons. That's what I'm saying. And it's gonna be
Will that be this year?
Yes,
Okay.
it'll be here pretty quick.
Okay.
So have y'all done anything out there?
It's been sprayed, but I wasn't gonna have them go in and start cutting things till it's ready.
Well, we need to go, once it's sprayed and killed, we go and get it ready, because when they call and say they're gonna do it, they're gonna do it. They'll do it one day.
We gotta have the rock there by then.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll find out on the rock price.
Where are we gonna have to go pick that up?
Merkel,
Get ready, we'll use whatever trucks we got on
and
it.
we'll just have to stockpile it, and I believe in that deal, we need to furnish a loader to load the rock at the airport.
I think so too. We got one close, we can use ours.
So,
If we work together, we can get that done pretty cheap.
What did you, just for discussion, what did you say the last?
That, I got a deal in from Hill Country
Those are the ones.
paving, and they was talking about doing this chip seal stuff. He said it's about half the price of regular paving like you do on the road or whatever. And, it was 60 cents a square foot, so it's gonna run around $120,000 just to do it that way. This sounds like a no-brainer.
No, I knew it was, I just wanted,
Northern County's just charging for the employees and the truck, they're not charging us for doing it. So it's a free gratis deal.
Yeah, they're,
They're not charging
They're
us
very
for
generous.
doing it. We're just gonna reimburse them for their wages and for all the fuel and all that.
all right, item number 12, county transportation infrastructure fund, the TIF grants. I've got the agreement to sign off on this morning. Looks like the amount awarded on this one, this is attachment B, $372,627. Total's about $427,000, I think, is what we're gonna get on that one. Preston, you said there may be a second one?
yeah, we may get a little more. Some of the counties are not gonna participate in it. They said that we, possibility we could get that money distributed.
Divided up. All right, did I have a motion on TIF grant?
No, I make the motion.
Second,
All in favor?
I just wanna remind y'all that we'll all need to know for sure what invoices and stuff go with that TIF grant. I made it fun so that we can keep up with it and there won't be any
We're gonna
questions.
make a line out on each
Yes,
individual
I did.
precinct.
It's Fund 35, and I did one for each of y'all for an expense and income, so. I just need to know when you bring them in for sure, so we'll know where to cut it.
Okay, next item, item number 13, will be the resolution for the TIF grant. I'll give a motion for that.
I'll make a motion. Second.
All in favor? Motion carries.
Who seconded that?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. It's hard for me to look up and see.
Okay, consider letter agreement with Clearway. Michael, you wanna?
Sure, this is pursuant to the road use agreement with Clearway Mesquite Star. I think Kevin can speak a little bit to the nuts and bolts of it, but basically we're just saying we're satisfied with the road work they've done. I included some language in there that we're not waiving any rights pursuant to the agreement, if, you know, in the event something pops up later. But in my discussions with Kevin, they've done a good job apparently, so. So I certainly am fine with the form of the letter, and if y'all wanna approve that, we can get that sent to them.
I'll make a motion to approve it here.
Yeah, I'm good with it. I think they did an excellent job with it. I would recommend it.
Motion second, Preston, all in favor? Unanimous. Okay, item number 15, update, Goldsmith. There you are, I didn't see you out there.
Yeah, good morning, Judge. Good morning, Commissioner. So, this item is for the IT update, just kind of give you a status of where we are on several things. And then secondly, there's another item that we're gonna speak to you about this morning, relating to the election security audit that the county recently undertook. But basically, two of the major things that have happened since we met with you last, and we haven't seen each other in a while, thanks to COVID and numerous other issues. But we've completed the election security audit for the county, which was about the Secretary of State's office and Pat, and I'll have more to say about that in a future item. The second thing that we brought to the county's attention that I just want you to be aware of is that Fisher County was attempted to be hacked by a Russian actor on 6/6, so June 6th at 6:01 a.m. We provided notice to the judge about that, but that was successfully blocked because of the things that we put in place. And we were notified in real time of that happening, because anytime someone tries to attempt to access your system that is unauthorized, it not only opens a ticket, but it also sends an alert to a group of us on text message. So that's a success story. Those things, we don't notice them unless they're bad, but I wanted to bring that to the court's attention. On the project that y'all have approved, we're trying to finish all those steps up. It is behind from where we expect it to be, partly because of delays with COVID, partly delays on our end and with vendors, but we're trying to wrap all of that up in this fiscal year, of course. The next things that we're gonna be migrating, which we finalized in the last 2 weeks, are the phones. There's nothing that should be changing to the end user really, it's just we're moving from AT&T to a new provider, which is gonna reduce that bill and allow us to cancel more services with AT&T and reduce your cost that we had originally outlined in the proposal. We've also been working with, Drew from our team has been working with Becky and Stacy in trying to get additional AT&T credits for your account, which they've agreed to, but it's been something they agreed to in January, and we're now in July, and they just keep saying next month, but we're continuing to push for that and have all the documentation in place so that that will happen. It's just a matter of getting it refunded to the county. So the next step, as I mentioned, is migrating the phones. The major outstanding item, and this was delayed partly because it was over what we expected the budget to be for, or what we proposed the cost to be. So we've gone back and adjusted it to try to get it in line with what was proposed, but the recabling of the building, so that's outstanding. And some of that was related to, we needed some of the electrical changes to be made, and y'all now made those, so we're trying to get that wrapped up for you. And then the last thing that I have for you is in future commissioners' courts, because of the election security assessment, we'll be talking to you about IT policies. The county needs to have more formal policies and procedures in place, both on the county end and then also what we're responsible for versus what the county's responsible for. So that's something that's going to be coming to the court in the future to outline those responsibilities and documented kind of written format. And that's something that's required by this election security assessment that would help the county score better, but we'll talk about that in just a little bit later. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. I'm here all day, so anyone that has a question that you want to talk about offline, I'd be happy to answer that.
Sam, do you have anything as far as budget proposal going forward for next year? We don't have a number for that.
We had sent a estimated budget based on what we proposed the last,
$155,000
I'd have to go and
is
look.
what Drew sent me, and that's what I plugged in, but I was just, that's what he sent me.
I can sit down and look at that with Becky. I know that I sent Drew a number, and it was basically what we proposed in the project. If you remember in the project proposal, it showed your capital expenditure on the top half of that big page, and then it showed kind of a monthly breakdown of internet and backup and disaster recovery and us and all of that on the secondary, and that's what I had forwarded over. Like, I don't expect what we proposed to you in the past to be any different for this future fiscal year, but we can sit down and look at that today and make sure that we're all on the same page, if that works for you, Judge.
Yeah. I mean, we just need something, because that's what we're doing today and the next month, so we can tag that number going forward.
Okay. Yeah, I know we sent something, but I'll review it with you or with Becky, however you'd like
Yeah,
to
and
handle
I
that, make
plugged
sure.
in
we're good.
155, and it has it broke down in backup, firewall, LEC network, courthouse network, security software for both the LEC and the courthouse,
Right.
secure email, hosting, and Office 365, all that.
Right,
Yeah, it's a big list, yeah.
okay.
That's what I plugged in, but I didn't know for sure if that's what.
Yeah, we don't project what we proposed to you all in the past to be any different for this current fiscal year, because we don't really see any capital improvements that need to be made outside of what you're gonna be doing on the election assessment, and there's some grant funding for that. But we'll sit down and look at that this afternoon to make sure you have a firm number.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Anybody, anything else for Sam?
And we know there's wrap-up type things that we need to do. One of the major things is the Wi-Fi deployment. I know that affects district court. We've had to put some things in place to get around that. But the cabling is kind of the last big piece of the puzzle. Our entire focus for, this was approved in mid-November, which was, very late on for the Windows 10, or Windows 7 going away January 14th. So that's where we focused to get all of that up to date, which we accomplished that, so that we could get to this election security assessment. Now we're circling back and finishing the cable, cleaning up things, can deal with whatever we need to. And we'll provide you a final punch list as
On the
well.
spot, I just don't know if anybody else had any issues
So,
with that.
remember we talked about the surplus, the computers and stuff that are in the Sally Port? And
Oh.
there's some in the old jail that needs to be taken, I think you were gonna take them to.
Yeah, so I know that this came before the court, and I thought we sent y'all a letter on this, but I don't deal with this, so.
Yeah, he did send a letter, but we still had questions about it, remember we brought it up a couple of times.
Right, so I know that all of the equipment that was pulled that was in production, meaning that was in use by the county, what we do as part of the standard procedure is we remove the hard drive from that, which is where the data lives, anything that's saved to the computer. We then tag the hard drive with a label of what office it came from and what date to destroy the hard drive on. And we usually keep those for 6 to 9 months, meaning we keep them in a secure area. That way, if someone comes to us and says we're missing something, we can go back and plug that hard drive into a computer and pull that information off.
I think the question was, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the computers that are over there were just gonna be donated to Goodwill, and we felt like some of them could have been sold or recycled or something, and then was it you, Pat, that told me that Goodwill was throwing stuff, like getting so
Yeah,
much stuff,
somebody
they
took
just throw it
some
away?
stuff over there and they said they were just throwing it, they had so much stuff right now, they were just trying to get it.
So what we've done in the past for Fisher County, but also with other customers, is we don't donate it to Goodwill for them to resell. We donate it, we're sending it to Goodwill, and Goodwill has a partnership with Dell Computer, and they call it tech recycling or something. It's where Dell pays Goodwill to employ people that need jobs that, they're trying to teach them a skill set. They pull those computers apart and sort them into plastics, metals, etc., and then recycle those.
Okay.
And so anything that we send to Goodwill will never be resold on the open market, because that gets tricky with counties of everyone having the opportunity to be a part of that process. But they're actually recycling that and splitting the materials apart. But before we send it there, anything that contains data is retained here and retained by the county. Once we get past that 6 to 9 months time period, and usually if it's a computer that we've always managed, we keep the hard drive for 6 months. If it's something we're not too sure about because we inherited it and it was set up goofy to begin with, we might keep it for closer to 9 months. But once we're done with that, we then destroy those hard drives. So we'll give you a written notification like email or something that we're removing 50-something hard drives from your premise. We will destroy those, document that we destroyed those, like take a photo of them being destroyed, and then send that to recycling, which that's the standard practice for banking, for instance, that they have to be, have a hole drilled through them or shot. From a compliance standpoint, the only computers that we don't recycle the hard drive or destroy the hard drive ourselves are law enforcement related, and that's because the CJIS security requirement requires that a peace officer destroy it or be present when it's destroyed. And so in that case, we'd probably be providing those to the sheriff, and we usually ask that law enforcement, use them for target practice and then take a photo of them and send it to us when it's finished, because it has to be destroyed in the presence of a law enforcement officer.
So the ones that we have right now, what do you need from the court to get them out of
What
the
we had
sheriff's
asked for,
Sally Port?
right, so what we had asked the court for is authorization to take all the technology recycling that we've removed. This is not the hard drives that contain information, but just the cables and monitors and broken pieces and parts, and that we were going to take those and deliver them to Goodwill Recycling in Abilene. But it's your property, and so we need you to approve that being done before we can take it. And we have been pulling the green tags off of them and scanning those and providing those to Becky's office, meaning the asset tags, that y'all can take that off of your inventory. So it's more of, we need authorization from the Commissioner's Court or from Fisher County to send the technology that cannot no longer be used to recycling. And there's no cost to the county. Well, we're not gonna charge you to take it there, but there's no cost to the county from Goodwill because they are paid by Dell. And they will accept technology other than Dell equipment, meaning it doesn't have to be a Dell brand for them to accept it. The alternative to that process is we have to box each one of them up individually and ship them somewhere, and that's not cost effective or efficient.
I think we were just in the dark.
Okay, well, we've drafted, I think we sent y'all a letter, like I said, but we've drafted kind of a formal procedure for that because we're getting asked for more formal procedures as part of this election audit, so that we can just provide that in the future, so that if everyone doesn't remember the process, it'll just come to Commissioners Court, if we're recycling these items, and here's how we go about doing that, so that, you know, it's above board, everyone knows exactly what's expected of each of us.
Thanks, Sam.
Okay, thank you, Judge.
I have a question.
Yes.
Can you contact Robin sometime today? She's got an issue with the computers in the control room.
Okay.
She thought they were supposed to be moved.
Yes, so that is one of the items that's remaining on the punch list, is we're going to be reworking the order that they're in and cleaning up the cabling over there. And we're also gonna be doing some additional cabling at the law enforcement center, maybe putting in some more computer plugs and stuff like that. But yes, that is on the punch list, but I'll talk to her today about it.
Okay.
The other item that's on the punch list for law enforcement is, the Commissioners Court approved getting that generator on monitoring, meaning we're gonna have the vendor come out and put a device on it so that when the generator needs fuel, or if it has a problem, or if it comes on to test or whatever, it sends out an alert so that we have a documentation trail of when it tested, you know, any kind of maintenance, any kind of problems. We have that for the battery system over there, but we want it for the generator as well, just kind of the formal process. So that's one of the items also that affects your office.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Item number 16, TAC employee savings program, Becky.
Yeah, this is just information for you guys. The TAC every year now gives us that money and we spend. I think Stacy called y'all or called your hands, and so she, ordered, gloves and beverage coolers and fire extinguishers and safety kits, and they're all in our office. So either you can come out and pick them up, or one of your road hands can come out and get what they need. That was all I had in mind.
All right. Item number 17, 4C electric, upgrade estimates for the annex offices. I've got a copy of that. I don't know if y'all do a picture.
Okay, good. They should.
$6,456.16. I think the money's already available.
Yeah, I think she said we had 8,000.
I need a motion on that.
Make a motion approved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Motion carries. All right, back to the Have a Grant Security.
Oh, okay, yeah, I sent y'all the quote for, I told you we're getting, you know, 120,000 from federal, state, whatever you wanna call it. And then we have to match 16, so give us 136. I've already got a quote from the vendor to replace that equipment we have, which is that 16 years, 17 years old now. And, y'all should have that in your thing. We'll still have paper ballots. We'll also have some electric, equipment that people can touch screen, but on that, it will also have a card they put in, and it will print out what they chose, so they'll still get to see it. But we'll also have the capability to do just plain paper ballots for people that just want that. So, what I told them I wanted was 3 of the electric, or the touchscreen, things for each polling place. And then we'll have the, big, ballot counter that actually, you know, counts them, that everybody will put their stuff in, just like you do now. They're just a little bit, more up to date than what I have, and also it'll be a new elections computer, because the one I have is way out of date and it's not hooked to the internet, and Sam was told not to touch that, because it's, yeah, that's very tricky on that. So up some other stuff we need to get done for the security agreement. So I wanted to go ahead and get the quote approved, so that way we send in, Ken will sign the resolution today, I think it's a dog share thing, and that way we can go ahead and get the equipment ordered. Hopefully, I would like to try to get it replaced and get it trained by our November election. Since it's a presidential year, I'd like to have the new equipment in place by then.
So the new equipment's gonna be a little easier for you to handle when everything's
Oh,
louder
yeah,
and
it's a
all that
lot
smaller.
easier, it's a lot easier, it's a lot easier to handle, and I think everybody's gonna like it. The younger people are gonna like the touch screen thing where they can come in and just touch it, and like I said, but, I mean, we will still have the capability to hand out the ballots, cause I have to mail them out anyway. So the ones that wanna come in and they wanna get the old, you know, when they sit down and mark it, we're gonna have both. So, and we're gonna be within what the state requires for us to have. So. But I just wanted to I wanna go ahead and get it ordered. I mean, we know the money's there, we know we're gonna get the money. There's no strings attached to it as far as anything except coming up with the $16,000 for it, which Becky's already got plugged into the budget, I believe, for next year for our matching, so.
Gentlemen,
I'll make a motion.
Second.
all in favor? Motion carries. Item number 19, security assessment, I guess this is.
Yeah, Sam's gonna talk about it.
So, just to step back for just one second, so on the recycling on the prior agenda item, does that mean we can move forward with having that stuff recycled, or does it need to come back to court and be voted on?
Probably needs to come back
Okay.
since it's not on there, but that's just gonna get it out of the sheriff's way, so that's not big.
Okay, so in this election security assessment, there's a hard copy of it. There's a lot of things that we can't discuss in open court. There's a lot of things that we can't discuss in open court because it's protected by law and it's related to the security of the election that you conduct. But this assessment was required by the Secretary of State. They hired, which was required by the federal government, they hired AT&T to do the assessment, and AT&T turned around and hired a Texas firm called Cyber Defenses, which is out of Round Rock, to do the assessment and to report back to the county and to the Secretary of State. The results of this are not public record, and the results of this aren't shared in detail with the Secretary of State. They're more looking at what are the criteria that they're scoring you on, and what is a score, and the score is based on a 5-point scale, I believe, and the goal was for a county to be at least a 2. When they started conducting these surveys across the state of Texas, they found out real fast that 2 was not really attainable. And so the average score, the last time I spoke with them, we've done numerous of these 4 counties, because as your IT vendor, there were 108 questions in about a 2.5-hour process that we had to sit in on and answer detailed IT questions related to the survey. But that process happened with us on the IT side of it, happened with Pat on the election setup side of it. It was kind of a group, it was definitely a group effort, but there were a lot of moving parts to it. But after doing these surveys across the state of Texas, the average was somewhere in the 0.75 range on awareness and readiness related to election security. And a lot of this is red tape, in my opinion, and bureaucracy at its best or worst. But there's a reason that it's in place. They want a documented paper trail that if your election administrator is sick or can't come to work, that the show goes on, so to speak. And a lot of what they want is formal processes or procedures. So the average was somewhere in the 0.75 range for different Texas counties. The counties that we have, that we've conducted this last year, they were anywhere from 0.6 to 0.8 something, so like, shy of 0.9. But because this assessment took place after us replacing computers and after a lot of the improvements that the Commissioner's Court has made for Fisher County, you're in a lot better position. We still know that some of the things that you've already approved that we don't have in place yet will help the score go up. And we know that there is more paperwork and policies and procedures that need to be put in place to make the score go up. But just to reiterate, most counties are in the 0.85 and the goal is to be at a 2.0. So if that makes sense. Fisher County's assessment came back at a 1.35, which was almost double what most of the counties like your size were or are. And so that is a really good thing. That means that you're very close to being where you need to be. And with the additional improvements that have already been approved by Commissioners Court on the IT side, and then with these policies and procedures that need to be put in place, I think that you're going to exceed a 2.0 score, which is what the goal is. A lot of that difference between what I would probably have expected Fisher County to be at from a policy and procedure standpoint versus what you were at, which got you to a higher score, was because Pat's office has been working with the Secretary of State as they've come out with sample policies of all these rules to adopt those for Fisher County and to put those as a formal part of the election procedure. So we've got some more to do, but I think that you're in a really good position to build on. And I think if you look at any county your size, you're ahead above the rest. So that's really good. The improvements to your election equipment, the additional IT improvements, like one of the things that is not in place yet is isolating traffic, meaning treating each office separately to where if someone gets compromised in the clerk's office, it can't travel to a different office. That's something that is on the roadmap to put in place, and that's one of the things that would have gotten us a little bit higher. They found a few items that we know of that we're still working to phase out, meaning some computers that are Windows 8 that they see as a security threat. But all of this, if you go talk to your local banker, if you talk to someone at First Financial across the street or any local bank, banks have had to go through this same or very similar process since about 2003, and where they have to have an independent, not just audit from a financial standpoint, but they have to have an independent assessment or audit from an IT and information security standpoint, and that's basically what this is. So we've known this is coming, it's here. What's going to happen from here, though, is these scores are going to be provided by to the Secretary of State, and then from there, they will decide where they want to put the money that they have available to them to make election security improvements, how they want to strategically place that money to raise the level for everyone across the state of Texas. To reiterate, especially because this is being sent to Facebook and wherever, nothing in your election process, meaning the machine someone votes on, the machine that the vote is tabulated or calculated on, the machine that the report prints out that says percentage of people who voted and percentage of how many votes one candidate received and vice versa compared to another candidate. None of that is connected to the internet, so therefore it cannot be manipulated by someone on the internet. And there are states that isn't the case, but Texas, that's always been the case, and it's a very strict process, a very difficult process when you want to make a change to a piece of election equipment to have that approved. So I want your voters to be, assured that no matter what they hear on the news, someone sitting halfway around the world can't change their ballot on that machine that they come in and vote on. But this is more policy and procedure and formal documentation, and it's something that I think would benefit everyone to have. Is it going to be a pain for the election administrator? Yes. Is it going to be a pain for us? Yes, but what we've known this is coming, so we're here. But we'd be happy to answer any questions. I'm sure that if you want to look through this in detail, that Pat's office could make that available. But past that, that's the level that I'm comfortable in discussing in open court. I'd be happy to answer any questions that I might be able to answer.
Thanks, Sam.
Okay, thank you.
All right, item number 20, budget workshop, y'all.
I promise back today. Are you over there tomorrow?
But not tomorrow.
Okay, I don't know, my office, I was supposed to be on the agenda, but